everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TakeCast. I have the great pleasure of being joined by my buddy, one Mr. Ron Stewart, here on the program. It's high time Ron came on the program to talk some ball, and boy, is there some ball to talk about. I mean, we have Anthony Richardson getting benched. Is Davante Adams going to get traded again? This is the year of the trade. This is the year of the wide receiver injury and the year of the trade. Ron, how is the 2024 NFL season treating you?
Not great. Happy to be on, but it's
Yeah.
the Jets are in a just a pile of just garbage. You got every player that it feels like a massive hit goes down injured, and then obviously we don't wish for injuries on anybody, but it's like the young receivers are getting hurt, and then Derrick Henry looks good as new. So just like everything that could go wrong, it's the Murphy's Law thing for anybody that even kind of operates in the ship chasing realm of drafting, I think.
The ship chasing extended universe, man.
Which I love. And we have a lot of winners in the ship chasing universe too, man.
We're having a rough year. I mean, it can really be distilled this way. I did the math on this on stream yesterday. Of the wide receivers drafted in the top 36 of ADP, over 35% of them have missed 2 or more games. Over 25% of them are on the season-ending IR. You know the lone running back who's on the season-ending IR? Isaiah Pacheco. And
Yep.
but McCaffrey's not season-ending. McCaffrey is going to come back. So there are 21 running backs in fantasy football who are averaging 13 or more 0.5 PPR points. There are 11 wide receivers averaging 13 or more 0.5 PPR points, which dovetails quite nicely, actually, with the first thing I want to talk to you about, which is the Aaron Rodgers experiment in New York. Who do you blame, Ron? You are, if for people who don't know, you are a big New York Jets fan, lifelong. Who do you blame for the 2-6 New York Jets start?
Well, I will preface it by saying I have since removed my Joe Namath jersey. That is a LaMelo Ball Chino Hills jersey that was just
Good.
lying around that I put on there. Because I can't, and I was supposed to go to the Colts game, and I said, you know what, I'm done putting money in Woody Johnson's pocket. I'm done with it all. And who is to blame? I think that the issue is probably, and this is going to sound pretty crazy, but I think I was listening to the NFL Stock Exchange, which is with Trevor Sikkema and Connor Rogers, who both do great work. It's like a draft podcast. But they did this thing like fixing the Jets, and they actually kind of made a great point. It depends on how far back you want to go, which is kind of the hilarious part of
Right.
It's probably owner, right? Because this is a guy who's very reactionary, right? We go to Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan actually takes over the Mangini sort of infrastructure, which actually created a great team with like Revis and David Harris and every single one of those like big time players. Then Rex Ryan comes in, he kind of kills the roster. Then we, react the other way. And it's like, we go Bulls and we ping pong to Adam Gase, an offensive guru. Then we come back to defense. And then it's just been so all over the place. You bring in Joe Douglas. And if you don't remember, like Joe Douglas, McCagnon was before him, who gets fired. I think that he did free agency, gets fired, and then Douglas comes in for the draft, which is just like so ass backwards. It's insane. He couldn't pick his first coach. I think that he just inherits Gase, tries the Darnold experiment, whiffs on Zach Wilson. So it's ownership, but then it's also GM Joe Douglas, who
It's really bad.
whiffs on Zach Wilson. He also, the butterfly effect of this whole entire shit show we're in is the Mekhi Becton pick. He takes Mekhi Becton over Tristan Wirfs, and then ever since then, we're chasing our tail at tackle. We go with like old and dusty Dwayne Brown, who's the guy who misses his block on the Achilles tear for Aaron Rodgers because we didn't have Tristan Wirfs at left tackle. So it's just been a litany of errors. Everyone's to blame. I don't take the that's why it's so brutal, is because like I have Jets fans that I'm buddies with in my hometown telling me, well, here's the issue. And it's just like, if the Jets were going to do it, it needed to be last year. Achilles popped, right? Because the defense was so good. They win 7 games with like Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle, whatever. That would have been the year. We're 1 year too late. Then we keep on trying to, chase our tails. We sit on our hands until we're 2-4. We make all these moves. So just like absolutely brutal from all, I want everything cleaned out, to be honest with you. I want everything cleaned out. If Rodgers wants to go, he can go. But just like everything that could go wrong went wrong. The defense has regressed. GM lost a couple like key pieces that people don't know about, but like John Franklin Myers was one of them. A lot of key pieces on the defensive line as well kind of just sort of moved away. And like as we've seen, you can't just keep an elite defense intact forever. Like we saw, the
That's
Jaguars with Jalen Ramsey is tough.
That literally right there, what you just said is the fundamental issue with team building in the modern NFL, which is that great defense is one, the guys just need to get paid and they got to move on. But basically, great defenses are just almost never sticky year over year. Just like basically in general, look at whoever the number one defense is the year before, and then look at them the next year, and like, oh, they were the eighth best defense, and like they weren't bad. They didn't get their team killed, but they weren't a weak winning unit. They weren't a team, a unit that adds wins. Like scoring, like it's actually so funny. Scoring was down so far, but as Gretsch pointed this out in Stealing Signals this week, if you actually look at the last 4-week sample, it is the highest we've had since the crazy COVID year in terms of just a points per game for teams. You win in the National Football League with a great offense. A great, like, it sounds so reductive, but I'll actually give you a football guy reason for why that's true. If you just think about what a defense has to do, a defense, by the very nature of the sport, they have to react. They can't enforce anything because the offense gets to decide if it's going to be a run or a pass. They get to decide when the ball is snapped. They get to decide what direction. So the defense just has to react to all these things. So a great offense is always going to win. And that has always been, I mean, for as long as I can literally remember the New York Jets, like the Mark Sanchez Jets, all the Jets, it's always been, well, we're going to have this great defense. We're going to have the best defense. We are going to run the ball. We are going to suffocate the air out of the other team, which can work in some years and in some metas of the NFL, but not this one, not this version of the sport.
Yeah, and it's like it's brutal because like I long for the days of Rex Ryan, but the issue is that he was a great players coach, but he was also terrible personnel wise, and he kind of drove that team into the ground, and then things got dysfunctional. People are in Jets Twitter right now. People are calling for next coaching cycle, give Rex an interview. Hell no, please. Like I love the guy, he's amazing, but I'm all good there. And I will say my biggest Jets take right now is the one thing you can point to with Joe Douglas that he did amazing on, that he made out like a bandit, was the Jamal Adams trade to the Seahawks. You get 2 firsts. One of them ends up being Garrett Wilson.
So
he gets a third on top, where Jamal Adams gave you two. He gave you like a first team All Pro, a second team All Pro, and like a couple Pro Bowls through those first like 3 years. I need Sauce Gardner gone. I've seen enough. He's a zero. I get that it's a passing league, but he's gotten away with a lot of holds in his career. And I feel like even cornerback play, unless if you're one of like, you need to be Jalen Ramsey. And even then, like, I feel like since like Revis and Sherman, we haven't seen a guy besides Ramsey like stick around as like the guy at corner. I know he has first team All Pros. I want someone else to pay for the previous production. I'm not like, he's going to want to set the market in the offseason.
He's a
no,
skinny
sir.
Boy. He's a skinny boy. He weighs like 190 pounds, dude.
You are being generous.
Yeah.
it's like it's a hair over 170 would be my guess.
I mean, it's like that is obviously hard, especially. I mean, I guess maybe it's easier again in this NFL because great wide receivers are more like 190, 195 now. Like he probably holds up in practice against Garrett Wilson just fine. Probably not against Davante Adams though. No. Davante Adams, 215, big guy, probably a lot harder of a cover for him. It also is so funny. The thing that for me, the big Jets conversation has always been the Darnold Saquon draft, because that was like such a lightning rod moment. The two teams in New York, the roads diverged. One team took one path, the other team took the other path. It does to me. I have always believed this. I probably have had moments of crises with this, but that like Darnold always would have been good if things turned out a different way for him. He was just like pretty awesome at USC, and in a way that Zach Wilson couldn't. He could actually make all the throws. Like you even in these losses that the Vikings have had, I don't think you can blame either of the two losses that they've had on Darnold. I mean, he played really weirdly. He played very bad in the second half against the Jets after he got banged up. But that shows the second layer, which is if the organization can't get competent, it almost doesn't matter the players you have. If your coaching staff and your front office are not competent and can't put guys in position to succeed with marginal talents, and I'm not saying Sam Darnold is like a top 15 quarterback or whatever in the NFL, but you could win 10 games with Sam Darnold if you're a competent organization. And basically the organization is like, we're skipping over the competent part and we're just bringing in Aaron Rodgers and saying this dude's going to be the 8th best quarterback in the NFL, and we can all be absolved of blame.
Yeah, the Rodgers thing is where it gets weird of just like, we missed on Wilson, but the team's ready to compete. And there is certainly a part of me where I did believe, like, if Rodgers played last year, I think that we probably make the playoffs. And
Oh
like, I don't
yeah,
know. And I'm getting to a point now where, and it bleeds into the Richardson discussion of, all the Colts fans are upset because they don't, or not all of them actually. They're very split. But the ones that I believe know ball, they don't want to lose in the wild card for no reason. I've now reached a point with the Jets where this curse thing is hanging over us to the point where I if I get blown out by 30 to the Chiefs in the first round or whatever,
that's
that's a
fine.
happy outcome. That at a certain point, the streak cannot go on any longer. If you already made the playoffs in the last like 10 years, then sure, you're gunning for a Super Bowl. But that's what I was on last year of like, okay, this is an elite defense. It's shown to be an elite defense. We have Rodgers. Let's just make the playoffs. But now it's just gotten to a spot where you're hanging on to that. The defense regressed. And then also I believed as well, which I think you can kind of credit to owner. You absolutely can credit to one of them, but potentially the GM is that Saleh should have been fired in the offseason. And then you bring in either like a Vrabel or you bring in some kind of like, offensive mind. But I think that they're at a point where you cannot take a chance on like a Joe Brady or like, Ben Johnson looks amazing, but like you need someone. Right now, the culture is just down horrendous, dude. Like, this is a team that doesn't believe that they can win football
Right.
games. This is a team that is like, you need someone that can come in and alpha Rodgers. As like, this is like a very football guy take, but like, Rodgers needs to be kind of sat down and put in his place a little bit. But yeah, I've just made peace with like, if he retires, he retires. If not, you play next year, and we have a future plan at quarterback. Which I will say, by the way, man, I lived through the Bryce Petty years. There are people out there that are Jets fans believing in this Jordan Travis kid out of Florida State. I will not
Oh
be tricked
yeah.
by. They're saying, "Oh, Jordan Travis, he's the future." It's like, dude, like even if he didn't tear an ACL, he's still a day 3 guy with a
Hey,
prayer actually being a
Sam
guy.
Darnold is a free agent. Sam Darnold signed a 1 year deal, Ron. Sam Darnold is a free agent. Bring him home. Bring him back.
I think he's going to draw a lot of money. No,
Oh, Sam Darnold is gonna get 4 years, $160 million.
I can't, but I see it.
Well, think about
I don't know.
there are you so like this is always what happens in the off season. You're like, oh my god, everyone has a quarterback. Like everyone has a quarterback. No one's giving Sam Darnold that money. Then the games start, and you're like, okay, well, there are a lot of teams. Like the Tennessee Titans definitely need a quarterback. We'll see what ends up happening. By the way, I wonder, I guess there's probably not any injury outs in Deshaun Watson's contract, so they probably just have to pay him. The Raiders definitely need a quarterback. The Giants, which would be the funniest outcome, need a quarterback. Yeah. The Saints don't have any ability to do it. What if the Panthers bring him back? What if the Panthers bring him back in with Canales? It's definitely possible. The Seahawks have no long-term commitment to Geno Smith. This is the last year of his deal. The Rams, Stafford might retire. There are plenty of spots where he could get 4 years, $160 million. Sam Darnold is going to get paid. I mean, maybe the Vikings just pay him. I mean, that maybe feels like actually the most logical thing is the Vikings are like, JJ McCarthy played one good quarter in the preseason, made like 4 good throws, but you miss your entire rookie year. The Kevin Cole did some good work on this, which is basically like you miss your entire rookie year, and that widens the range of outcomes to include way more busts.
And this is for rookie quarterbacks.
Just rookies in general. I mean,
yeah.
But like, I mean, we see this with like wide receivers all the time. The wide receiver who gets injured, like Jameson Williams is a great case study for this.
Yeah.
Of like Jameson Williams was probably always good, and probably would have been a really good NBA player, or NBA probably would have been a pretty good NFL wide receiver if he didn't get injured and then gambling suspended. Now he's got a PED. Like his career is just going to be weirdo forever, probably. Yeah, but in general, and I think Kevin's analysis actually did focus in specifically on quarterbacks. There just hasn't been that many instances of it. But basically, you miss your rookie year, and it can go sideways pretty quick.
Yeah, I would assume. I feel like I'm trying to think of like it's really more like maybe David Wilson for the Giants, like back in the day, fall into that category. But yeah, I mean, I guess like Mike Williams Chargers was a little bit in there too. But yeah, that is interesting. Of like, you know what, we don't know even really what we have, but I think that's a pretty brutal number to eat. Just with like you're seeing now, and I'm not saying it's a bad move, but you're seeing now with the Giants last night. Like the Giants are so sick of Dalen Jones. They paid him all this money, which means that they have to watch all these games with him. It's not one for one. I mean, Darnold's played way better ball than Daniel Jones ever really has.
Yeah, Daniel Jones' good season, more interception or came with 15 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones' winning season came with 15 passing touchdowns. By the way, Daniel Jones does have an out after this year of his contract. Now, he does have injury guarantees, but he could be cut for $22 million in dead cap. But I believe, I'm not a salary cap expert, but I believe that comes with, you can spread that over 2 years, I believe is the way that works. And it's like, well, the New Orleans Saints been doing this forever. So probably you can eat 15 million dead.
Yeah. I'm not a cap expert at all. So whatever you tell me, sounds good. But yeah, dude, I honestly I feel bad for him, man. Like he saw to the 2-point last night. Like he just like visibly, like I think that he understands like what's happening here, dude. Like the Giants fans are ruthless to him on the way out. They have like one winning season like during his entire career there. Like and Dable comes out afterwards. He's like look, like this is what was wrong. Like he was supposed to shift the tight end to Chip TJ Watt or whatever. And he's like DJ, like he's beating himself up too, man. Like he knows that he screwed up and he feels bad. Like it is tough, but I do kind of believe in the idea that the Vikings, like winning culture, you could sign Sam Darnold. I will say they are very fed up with that GM. Fun nugget, my little brother, who's a freshman in college, it annoys me to this day. I was from birth Jets fan. It just got stapled to my forehead, and I've carried this scarlet letter with me throughout my entire life. He's just like, nah, I'm just gonna be a Vikings fan, man, and that's just where he's at. So, he's a Vikings fan. They seem pretty fed up with the Questside dude who came from the Browns. Dallas Turner's been pretty shaky this year. Louis Cine, who they traded back out of a Kyle Hamilton pick for, they're pretty fed up with. Like, I don't know. That's like a whole other tangent, but they seem pretty sick of their GM as well.
I mean, I did that. I Ron, from birth. Like I've posted this picture on Twitter before. My dad had me in a Cowboys onesie. Like,
no.
Oh yeah. So my dad grew up in Oklahoma. There wasn't a pro team. There were 2 teams on TV when my dad was growing up. You could choose the Steelers. You could choose the Cowboys. He chose the Cowboys. Guess what? He got to see a billion Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Like he got it all. I was born in 92. They won their last Super Bowl in 93, I believe. 93 or 95.
Wow.
My memory of the Cowboys, I never saw them win a playoff game when I was a fan of the team. I saw, Romo fumble the snap, Quincy Carter, Bill Parcells calling Terry Glenn, Teresa Glenn at a press conference. I moved to Kansas City in 2016, so the year they drafted, or 2017, the year they drafted Mahomes. I went to Mahomes' first home opener as a starter. DraftKings gave me tickets. Shout out to DraftKings back when they used to hook us up, back when they used to care about us. And I said, you know what, dude? Enough is enough. I'm done. I'm out. The Dallas Cowboys have done nothing but hurt me, and they don't even care. That's the thing. Very similar to how you feel about Woody Johnson. They don't even care about putting a losing product on the field. Like Jerry Jones is like they invent this Rico Dowdle healthy scratch or this Rico Dowdle illness because they're too afraid to make Zeke a healthy scratch. They're letting a 29-year-old running back averaging 2.8 yards per carry like hold the entire organization hostage. I said I'm done. I said I'm out. I live in Kansas City. I'm a Chiefs fan.
I can respect that because you're local. I can't do it. Like we have no ties to Minnesota.
No ties to Minnesota.
No ties to Minnesota. That's something else that just like if you're local, I kind of love that. You like move to a new city, you're gonna buy into this team. Especially like the Chiefs. Like there's no bandwagon to hop on. Like
they were bad. I mean, they had Alex Smith, so like they weren't terrible. Andy Reid was the coach, but like and they did have Tyreek, but it was like they were kind of. What's a good comp right now? They were kind of the lovable losers. Honestly, they were kind of like the Vikings are right now.
Yeah.
Like they're good. They're kind of fun on offense. They had, Tyreek, the Vikings have Jefferson, but
Jamal
no
Charles
one
before that was fun.
Jamal Charles.
Priest Holmes.
I was at a game where the Chiefs set the single game rushing record in the NFL. I believe it still stands. I need to go check. Jamal Charles, Peyton Hillis against the Indianapolis
Hell
Colts.
yeah.
It was about 10 degrees outside. It was miserable, and they lost. NFL rushing record in a game, and they lost. Like this was a futile organization. They lose that playoff game to Andy Luck and the Colts, the crazy comeback. Like this, it was not like I was jumping on the Super Bowl champion Chiefs. Yeah. Now, granted, it's been a pretty fun experience since then. And but I would honestly, anyone listening, I would encourage you to do it. If you are a long-suffering fan, just bail. Just bail. You don't have to. You don't have to be a Jets fan, man.
It's going to be so sweet, man, when we do it. When we win it all, it's gonna be so sweet. That's the thing, man.
It will be great. It will, and I would never want to take that away from you. If you're 48 years old and Aaron Rodgers' kid, leads the Jets to, I don't want to take that away from you. There's certainly something poetic about that. By the way, are you Mets or Yankees?
I'm Yankees, but like I don't care about baseball to the point. Like if I'm cool with either New York team doing well, like it's probably the sport I care about the least. And like
Yeah.
I like last night, my biggest takeaway was I was just astonished at how slow Stanton was. Like this big bulky 6'6" like athlete. I'm like, this is the effort that he's giving running to home. Like I don't know if you saw this, but like just like looking like year like 14 Gronkowski,
Oh yeah.
like hobbling to the home plate. Like I was like, is he hurt? Like what the hell is that, man?
It was I got to be honest, the Royals got eliminated from the postseason. I was like, that's it for me. Like
Yeah.
so it's like at my old job, we did a lot of basketball, we did a lot of baseball, but like
That's fun.
basketball started now, and I'm trying to do these daily drafts on Underdog. Like I'm trying to stay more plugged in, and I was like, I got enough going on in my life. Like I can't be watching these teams I literally
Wait till
don't
Christmas,
care about
man.
at all. Yeah, Christmas. It's the NBA. The NBA. It's great. I really enjoy it. I get weirdly amongst football fans. I don't know if you find this like in your Discord or whatever. Football fans are like weirdly anti-basketball. They're like weirdly like they don't play any defense. All the stars rest all the time. What happened to this country? Like it's really old man grumpy stuff. But I really enjoy the modern NBA.
I'll actually sort of disagree a little bit. I'm somebody I consume a lot more college basketball than I do NBA. And
Okay.
my NBA experience, I say I'm a Knicks fan, I guess. I don't live in like they got killed by the Celtics. Like I couldn't care. Like in game
Right.
1 versus Celtics, like I truly could not care. But like I am stoked. Like after seeing Paolo versus Chet, Duke versus Gonzaga a few years ago, seeing them both like look amazing. Like that has been very fun for me. And I do think there is something. I think maybe it was Nick Wright the other day had a very good rant on the NBA being a maybe like complacent's kind of the word of like boxing had its time and like the mainstream media and all these sports did. And if every night's just going to be a 3-point contest and your stars are going to sit out back to backs, 82 game season, like it's pretty brutal. And it's very much a highlight driven league. Like I think most NBA fans really are just watching like TikToks and Instagram reels. So I don't know. That's kind of like my old man shouting at the cloud take when it comes to NBA, but I do love college basketball. Like there is something more to it. I think NAL has killed that a little bit, sadly. But when you get the Cameron crazies at Duke and stuff, like it is very cool. I think March Madness is the best tournament in all of sports. So I do love college ball, I will say, but I still do follow both.
Oh yeah, I mean the NBA is the TikTok sport.
Yeah.
It is it's people care more about like I would bet my last dollar that more people listen to well, I was going to use Zach Lowe as the example, but more people listen to Zach Lowe's day one free agency recap podcast than listen to his game one finals recap podcast.
Oh yeah.
People care. They love the transactions. The transactions are what it's all about. Actually, great segue. God, I'm good at this. Speaking of instant gratification, the Indianapolis Colts bench Anthony Richardson after his 10th NFL start, ostensibly because he got gassed after a crazy scramble it set up a 3rd and 23. He asked to be removed for Joe Flacco for one play so that Flacco could hand the ball off to Jonathan Taylor, immediately comes back in the next series. I mean, what's your, just before we really what's your read on why he got benched?
I think it really was. My guess is I think there's probably a contingent in the locker room that truly believed that they had better chance to win games this year with Flacco.
I think they all believe that. I bet every guy on the roster believes that, including Richardson.
Well, that's true, but I think that there's probably like a team Flacco contingent of like we want him to start now. I imagine there's probably a contingent of like Richardson's going to be the guy for the future. Especially a lot of the young guys too, of being like let's build this guy up. But this was kind of like I think that they almost used how polarizing this was to just like a reason to bench Richardson, if you will. Because like I don't think that if he didn't take a playoff, I don't think that he gets benched.
Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, like obviously, if Anthony Richardson was playing well, if they were winning games, if Anthony Richardson was completing passes, Anthony Richardson right now has the lowest completion percentage in the modern era. If you have to do a qualifier, I believe it's 10 starts. It might be 200 throws. 44.4% of his passes. Tim Tebow completed 46.5%. Jamarcus Russell completed 48.8% of his passes. He's playing really bad. Anthony Richardson is also 3 years younger than Jaden Daniels. Straight up. At the age that Anthony Richardson is, Jaden Daniels was blowing ass at Arizona State. And again, the Jaden Daniels thing, we've relitigated it all a ton. Ron, you're a prospect guy. I'm a prospect guy. A lot of that was not his fault. The team was in like active revolt. I believe there was something with Jaden Daniels' parents that was like, there was like family
His
drama.
mom's crazy, man.
Yeah. I forget what it was, but there was like family drama going on. Not really the point. But the point is that Anthony Richardson has made 10 NFL starts. Daniel Jones has made 71, and Daniel Jones has never been benched. Although Joe Flacco with these Giants, they might be fucking cooking. Can you imagine Can you imagine what Malik Neighbors' fantasy numbers would be like if Joe Flacco was tossing? I mean, the guys turned Josh Downs and Michael Pittman Jr. Like Josh Downs and Michael Pittman Jr. rest of the season top 18, top 15 fantasy football wide receivers probably if you contextualize for all the injuries. I think where I've landed though, it's just insanely short-sighted because the only way Richardson will ever get any better is by playing. He just will not get better with
But what about Mahomes,
reps.
man? Mahomes sat. He learned a lot from Alex Smith.
Well, if you're gonna make him sit, that's got to be the plan from the jump. If you're gonna make him sit, one, you got to have a better backup quarterback in year one than Gardner Minshew. You got to have Andy Dalton. You got to have Joe Flacco. You got to have Jameis Winston. You got to have a guy who. Probably not Jameis. Jameis is probably a bad example.
Yeah.
Flacco last year, Flacco in 2023 would have been almost ideal. Flacco has been there, done that. He literally did it with Lamar Jackson. Like they drafted a first-round quarterback. He played, and then when Flacco started playing bad, they put Lamar in. Would have probably worked out. It's actually kind of goes back to just saying it's just poor planning. It's because either Anthony Richardson is your guy, and he's starting, and you're taking your lumps, and everyone in the locker room's got to be on board. You know, DeForest Buckner and Michael Pittman Jr. and these guys, they got to be on. I don't even know if DeForest Buckner is actually a Colt. That was just the first defensive player.
I think he's on IR, maybe.
Like classic. Jacob would know. But it's just a mess. And the optics of it happening right now are just like brutal. Like when the whole press conference is, I was gassed. Like also, Anthony, just lie.
Yeah,
like,
no, that was bad. That was
you
very
gotta
bad.
lie, dude. You gotta lie. You gotta be like, I took a shot to my rib and I needed to go.
PR definitely talked to him as well. That's kind of the dumbfounding part. And the thing, I don't want to coddle the guy, but he's reached a point now where everybody wants him in bubble wrap. Where every time that anything happens to him, it's like, oh my god, because last year, he starts like 6 games, he finishes like 2 of them. So he's now gotten this in his mind where whenever he is shaken up or at risk of injury, they're telling him, come out, like, don't risk it, don't do whatever. So I genuinely do think that he was just kind of doing what he's been doing, where he takes I thought he might have sprained his MCL on the play before that, where he shrugs a 300-pound guy off his back, he scrambles, he gets tackled by 2 guys, and one of them actually like twists his knee in a very weird way to the point where I thought like it was a real injury. Again, I think that it's just this idea that he's been told throughout these last 2 years of like, you are the franchise, save yourself, like stop taking these big hits. And I think it truly was just an act of like, all right, like that was a big one. I'm gassed. Like there's no reason to sacrifice anything here. I think he's learned his lesson. Like I do think that there is my first nerd take. I know there are a lot of nerds out there of saying like, well, taking the playoff, like it doesn't matter. It was 3rd and whatever, but there is something to like, hey, these offensive linemen, when you ask them for a game-winning drive to go 10 plays down and give their all, you need to live up to that standard as a like there is a certain leader of men aspect that I know that we don't love to embrace or whatever, but like there is 100% that. And I just think as a guy that I looked it up today, 23 starts dating back to freshman year of high school, man.
High school.
He like the dude started 23 games in college, like times 3, like Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix at Oregon. Like I genuinely don't think that he understands what it means to be a quarterback and a leader in that locker room, and then also what it kind of portrays. I genuinely think that was just like a slip up. Like I don't think that he was genuinely taking a play off, but there is something to also the hunger of like, if he comes out, Flacco can come in and then take his job away. So there is some complacency there. So I don't hate the idea of like giving him like, behind the closed doors, like kind of ringing him out a little bit, but it does feel very harsh and kind of like they were waiting for the first excuse to put Flacco in. And I do agree with you. Like, I don't think, I think it's pretty short-sighted. I think I don't really understand, especially like from Ballard's perspective of like if Richardson doesn't work out, like I don't know that Ballard has a future there. Everything's kind of in jeopardy.
So that's the weird part is I'm like,
Yeah.
well, who's trying to save their job? Who needs the wild card loss to save their job? I don't think it's Steichen. He's pretty well regarded. I don't
Yeah.
see a ton of like, oh, Steichen is a bad coach. They've generally overachieved given his quarterbacks have been Anthony Richardson and Gardner Minshew, and the defense has just been like everyone on their defense gets injured. Ballard has had a long time to produce winning teams and has not done it. And maybe he just thinks like, oh, if we win 10 games, I'm not getting fired. But that's not even logical because you're the one who drafted him. You had the number 4 pick in the draft and you drafted Anthony Richardson. That's ostensibly more your job than it is Steichen's. I don't know. It does not feel wise. It just doesn't like, and maybe this is like an overarching NFL problem, I guess, is that developing a quarterback is very hard and there's not like a way to do it. Like either you're CJ Stroud and you're awesome right away, or you get no development time and we just move on from you. I don't know. Maybe there's a future where there is an NFL 2. When NFL Europe existed, I think they were like connected to NFL teams and you could like send a guy to go and like to play for the Berlin Dragons or something. I mean, that would be almost kind of ideal, but there aren't enough good linemen to go around, I guess is the issue. You find that watching spring football. There are not very many good linemen out there.
The big piece of dialogue is like we're getting all these football guys and like quarterback coaches saying, if you aren't a true difference making talent, just stay in school for as long as your eligibility lets you stay there.
For
I don't know
sure.
how I feel about that because I guess with NIL now, I was going to say, you want to secure the financial future, but if you're getting paid millions to be quarterback at LSU or Oregon, and you transfer to one of these big time schools, and screw it, man, like stay there, become good. Like if you're genuinely a raw quarterback where you only have going to the NFL, we're talking like 15, 16, 17 starts, like go just like play college ball for a long time, have fun, live it up. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't fault any of the quarterbacks really this year. I'm trying to think, like all of them are kind of pretty shaky. I guess like Cam Ward should come out, but like the Nussmeyers of the world and those type of guys should probably just try their best at school.
Is Shedeur a junior? Can Shedeur? I guess in college you can just get eligibility for anything.
Dude, they're handing it out to everyone.
Cam Ward is a crazy story, by the way. Incarnate Ward to Washington State.
Yeah.
To my Incarnate Ward to Heisman to maybe number 1 overall pick. By the way, the Panthers taking Cam Ward and then him sucking is just going to be like brutal. Just like, it's not ideal. I don't want it. Because I like Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward is fun, and I don't want to see him be bad in the NFL.
Now, I do want to offer some Richardson cope here. I get the completion percentage is bad, but like also his completion percentage like expectation is low because he leads all quarterbacks with a 13.3 yard ADOT. Second is Brock Purdy at 10. So it's like at a certain point, like I understand, like I know everyone's like kind of throwing out the completion percentage, but his ADOT's super high. And then also he has the second highest big time throw percentage behind Josh Allen and in front of Justin Herbert. So like there's a lot going on there. I think it's a little dumb. And then also in terms of yards per attempt, he's above 7 and he's like tied with Stafford, Kyler, Geno area. So it's like, I don't know. I get it's not pretty. But I also think it's like really overstated of like this completion percentage is bad. I think if going back to last year, it like comes up to like 50.2% because he was at like 59.5%. So I don't know. He's like regressed a little bit, but also I know that ADOT's a function of the quarterback, but at the same time, like can Steichen, we don't want to see him throw a bubble screen into the stands, but like also I'd like to see him try.
So man, you kind of had me, and then I was like, what would it look like having Richardson throw bubble screens? And I'm like, well, it would look bad. Like the things that he does are like superpowers. Like that throw that he made in week 1 to Alec Pierce, no one else makes that. Like literally not another guy can make that throw. Like defender hanging off him 65-yard, just a fucking frozen rope. Like just an insanely important play. And you know what's weird is like maybe he would have worked in a different era of football when teams only threw like 22 times a game and your wide receivers could just run free. Yeah. Why? Like let him, because he cannot he can't execute the West Coast offense, basically. Like any crosser, like you ask this dude to run, like go run the Sam Houston State mesh. Like literally the easiest, most basic. Here's your first read. Here's your second read. If the second read's not open, your running back's right here. He literally can't do it because he can't complete the check down. Like he cannot. Like you're wondering like, oh, if I go play catch in a parking lot with Anthony Richardson, is he going to be able to like hit me? And I don't know enough about football to know if it's like he's got bad mechanics or whatever. You go back and forth on this. I don't know where you stand, Ron, but like people will watch Anthony Richardson and be like, well, he can complete these 70-yard. I mean, even in the game he just got benched for, he had like these 2 unbelievable throws. The one to Downs for what would have been a touchdown. He ended up being out on the 1-yard line. I mean, my God, like no one's making that throw. But then at the same time, you're like, can you complete a 7-yard slant to Michael Pittman Jr. and it goes out of bounds? And it's like, can you just teach him how to make short area throws? And basically, real football guys kind of say no. Like Mike Leach, if you've never seen it, there's this like great speech that he does about basically like I bring these quarterbacks in, and he always had shitty quarterbacks. He had 0-star recruits. Basically it's the Mike Leach thing, and he was like, I'd have them throw some passes, and if they threw the passes the right way, I knew they could play. But like Mike Leach never would have wanted Cam Ward. Great example actually. Like he was like, oh, a toolsy guy or whatever. No use for it. Because you got to be able to hit the 8-yard crosser, and he literally just can't.
Yeah, and I did want to I did actually I do find it just like a completely other side tangent, but like when you watch Cam Ward play, like he is like there's just such a lack of urgency that I think would kill me if I was the coach of just like very like he's not finishing runs to get out of bounds. He's almost like daring you to get a like an unnecessary roughness call. Like he's very nonchalant. Like he is someone that does platinum numbers on like the TikTok algorithm of just like look at this guy play quarterback. Like he's almost like Paul George-esque of just like look how smooth this guy is and the way he plays. But I did want to peddle a narrative of I think and this is just from I will say as well, you like the film stuff. I don't watch film, but I love the QB school. Like his opinions are mine, by the way. Like in terms of real
people love that guy. People love the QB school.
No, he's amazing. Like, dude, he did on his Patreon, he did a 3.5-hour break. I haven't watched it. I don't know that I will, but it's a 3.5-hour breakdown where he went through every single like snap or drop back of the Bears versus Washington game just to evaluate the 2 young quarterbacks. But he's at least great of just like showing you like what are they trying to accomplish on this play, what went wrong, what are you looking for here. He does of course like kind of inject his own opinion where the Richardson pick that he had in his own territory was something called like Hank, or just like essentially just like 5 hitches, which is pretty brutal to ask Richardson to just like throw with anticipation and find the hitch that's open versus cover 2. And like, it's like 3rd and manageable, like backed up on your own 20. But Pittman looks clearly cooked, man. Like remember a few weeks ago, it came out like, oh, he's going to be on IR or something. And he just was like,
IR.
And then it was just like, nah, like he's just not like he's fine. No, never mind. But I'm seeing these clips, man. I think Ben Solak has kind of been circulating them of like Pittman looks unreal bad right now to the point where I think that they have a better chance of winning games with Ashton Doolin. Like that's genuinely how bad he's looked. He's like if the ball, if he's not the first or second read, he's like just dogging his routes, and that actually ended up being not a turnover, but almost a turnover because Stingley realized that he was just not trying and just covered the next man, and then he broke up the pass, like invited Stingley into the passing lane, and then also just like fell over himself on like a pretty easy hitch. Like he looks bad. He's bad at the catch point. Like he's somebody where even with Flacco, I'm not all that excited. I mean, I think long term, like Pittman should be fine, but like I'm not dying to start Pittman this week. But I guess injuries are so bad, you could talk me into it.
I mean, and like, I don't know, guys do play hurt at this time of the season. Yeah. And Josh Downs, a lot of the issues would maybe be alleviated if A.D. Mitchell could just fucking pay attention.
Jeez,
he could
man.
Because like
he had a touchdown that he just like didn't like. He was just like, nah, I'm just not gonna get that foot down. Like I'll catch it, but it's brutal, like, man.
Because I was like a big A.D. Mitchell prospect guy. I was like, this guy can really play when he like. And it's so funny. You can like see it in his college profiles. Like he scored a touchdown in every college football playoff game he ever played in. I wonder why. Because he locked in for those games. Like those are the games where he was like, all right, let's go win the game. But you've got him against like North Texas, and he's just like, whatever. I mean, I guess I'll play. I'm not really sweating it. Just brutal. All right, the last thing I want to do is the wide receiver trades, because I love this. I love that we are just finally seeing this now. Actually, before we get really into them, let's start with like the big one. Davante Adams, the only one traded for a really meaningful pick. Are you pissed off that they wait? Like, why didn't they just do this in June? What
That's what I
was the
don't
logic
understand.
from either side? Why was Adams not traded earlier?
My only guess is truly that Joe Douglas has just been very like again. It kind of goes back to Joe Douglas, the GM. He's like so conservative, man. Every trade that he's ever made, he is haggling down to the last penny. He needs it to be the correct amount, but I think it was kind of incompetence on both sides. As funny as that might be, like we're seeing now. I mean, if I load up Raiders Madden franchise right now, the first thing I do is I sell Max Crosby for as many picks as I can, and they just have no grasp of kind of what that even is. So it seemed like they wanted to go into the year, try and compete. And then why, there was probably like a couple, like 2 weeks before they could have done with Davante, but I think it truly was this, like, I think one, Joe Douglas being very stingy of what that return was going to be. And then also the Raiders kind of being reluctant, like thinking that they, because if you go into a season where Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, your quarterbacks, like you are pretty, like you're not on the plane of reality we're all operating on when you throw out Davante Adams and Crosby and you think that you can win games with that formula. So I think it was kind of both sides. At the time, I appreciated that they did it, especially with Joe Douglas, like his third round picks, dude. Like you could ask a man off the street and produce better results than Jeremy Rucker, Jabari
Oh my
Zuniga,
God, Jeremy
uh,
Ruckert.
Malachi Corley this past year that they can't even get on the field, even though we traded up to the first pick of the third round. And we laugh as the Colts take A.D. Mitchell because we were scared they'd take Malachi Corley, but just brutal stuff all around. So I think it was kind of both. And I don't know, third round pick, like at the end of the day, all of these wide receiver trades are for cheap. So it sucks that ours had to be the most, but I at the time I was like, you know what, screw it. Like, let's do it. But now I do kind of wish we had the third round pick back for sure.
Yeah, you're probably gonna miss. You're probably gonna miss that. Although the Raiders are the one making the pick, so probably not. Like I was gonna
No,
be like, oh
literally.
yeah, you're gonna see that pick. Be the next. It's gonna whatever small school wide receiver we like who ends up breaking out, but it's the Raiders, so it's gonna be some guy who sucks. I mean, I'm pretty frustrated the Chiefs didn't try and find a way to get him. Like, I mean, for fantasy football and for real football, like Davante Adams and Mahomes would have been great. But
The
I
whole
do
trade
what.
market makes no sense, by the way. Like, why these
Mm.
teams aren't more eager? If it just takes a third round pick to get Davante Adams, like I don't know what all the stubbornness is about.
The Raiders ate some of the money too, didn't they? Not all of it, but they ate some
A
of
little
it
bit.
to get the pick. So it's like, well, if they're gonna eat some of the money, I mean, what with the Texans? The Texans, like, I guess they didn't. They knew Nico was hurt. They didn't know that Diggs would be out for the year. But I mean, the one that happened today. Why is Deontay Johnson a Raven? You're gonna run out in a playoff game for the Texans. You're gonna be running out Xavier Hutchinson or John Mechie. I mean, maybe they think there's something there from Mechie. He was the 44th overall pick 2 years ago. The guy had leukemia, so like I guess he never really got a fair shake. But like Deontay Johnson for what was like basically a 15 spot pick swap on day 3, and he's a Raven. You guys, these AFC teams are letting the Ravens replace Bateman with, although Deontay Johnson will rival Rashad Bateman for the most hilarious drop of the NFL season,
Yeah.
probably. Like, so it's a pretty good like for like, but like, also would be insanely funny if the Jets traded him again. If the Jets traded Davante Adams, if they're like, we're 2-6, we're done. This shut the experiment down. I don't even know if legally, like in the rules of the NFL, it can happen, but someone should be making a call. Billy Bean, Brandon Bean from the Bills should be making a call.
Somebody should make a call. I think the issue is that, again, the Jets ownership and GM, I think that they're so stubborn that if anyone gave them less than the third round pick, it would be an issue. Like I don't think that they would. Like I think the sunk cost is so strong that they would just. And that's kind of the other, like, just to sort of circle back to the Jets take of like, the thing is about the Jets right now is that if owner Woody Johnson doesn't make it clear to Joe Douglas he's either fired or extended, Joe Douglas is going to sit on his hands, right? When they should kind of be sellers right now, they should be looking towards next year. Instead, Joe Douglas is just completely phoning everything in because he doesn't know what his future is. You know what I mean? So, like, why would he make a situation better for the next guy, kind of out of the goodness of his own heart? So that's what's tough. Like, I don't think that unless if they extend Douglas, I don't think that he's going to look past the very near term. And Davante's a very weird one too, where he's owed like $30 million next year, but you can cut him for nothing. But then if you cut him for nothing, you traded a 3rd-round pick for like 8 games of like pretty mediocre production.
What if he
So
just
I don't know.
What if he just retires? What
There's
if
a
he
decent
just
chance him and Rodgers just ride off into the sunset and just like live together in San Francisco or something.
It would be kind of a bummer, honestly, to never really see Davante Adams like get to win anything. You know,
Yeah.
those Packers teams never. I guess they made a. No, they never even made a conference championship. My man scored 18 touchdowns in 2020, and they flamed out in the playoffs. What'd they do? They lost to the They lost to the Tom Brady Buccaneers in the playoffs. I mean, it's pretty. I mean, well, weirdly, I was gonna say I'd like to see him with the Chiefs, but Hopkins might be like the better fit actually
Oh
for
yeah.
what the version of the offense is now. I feel like one that the NFL is gonna wish they had back was Amari Cooper though, because Cooper can still really play. I think he's done nothing with Buffalo so far, but like giving Josh Allen a rookie wide receiver coming on, he's over 2 yards per reception right now, or 2 yards per route run. Khalil Shakir has caught every target but one thrown at him this season. And the issue was they kind of had the Chiefs problem. They were playing a dead body as the 3rd wide receiver. They were playing Mac Hollins or MVS. Now you replace that with Amari Cooper. Like, my God, the Bills, they might have finally found their combination.
Yeah, and I will say, not to like completely derail the fantasy talk, but like as a Chiefs fan, is this the most you felt real competition, or is because like you've had some Lamar MVP years and stuff, but this does feel, I don't know, like I'm even talking myself out of it now, but like I'm thinking this would be, if there was ever a time to be any level of something could break wrong in the playoffs of like Lamar is playing his best ball, they just get Deontay Johnson, Bills gets Amari. I mean, at least now, like the Texans, I'm not taking the Texans really all that seriously for a Super Bowl run, and then neither like the Bengals either after the loss to the Eagles. So it is kind of Bills and Ravens, but those do seem like two of probably the best like true contenders, kind of like in the Mahomes era, outside of like when Brady was, of course, there.
I mean, the Ravens are better than them, and the Ravens were better than them last year.
Defense is shaky right now.
Against this version of the Chiefs team, I don't even know if it matters, honestly.
Yeah.
Like they're putting up 25 or 28 on you max.
That's the other part, is that the Chiefs have probably, it's all relative. Like they're still the favorites, but this is probably like I guess what I'm trying to say, this feels like the closest gap in a while between the Chiefs and the other two contenders.
If the Ravens come into Arrowhead with a really strong game plan and they just don't play like idiots. I mean, they just played so dumb in the AFC Conference Championship last year.
Yeah.
Just like every part of their game plan. The defensive game plan was bad. The offensive game plan was maybe good to start with, and then they completely abandoned it. I think the trade for Deontay Johnson helps because you are just replacing like, what maybe would have been Devontae Walker snaps and Nelson Aguilar snaps in the playoffs. Like you're just not going to have to deal with any of that. Like, Willie Snead has been involved in some of Lamar's biggest games. There's no need for that at this stage of Lamar Jackson's career. But I mean, it's just they are the Patriot comp now, where it's like they have everyone on the roster has like infinite experience. They don't panic. They could be down 10 points on the road and they're just like, well, it's time to go to work. And it's like that is a hard thing to build on. And I definitely think the Chiefs should be a dog to the Ravens in a playoff game. I just think they're better. And Lamar's playing out of his mind. Lamar's like on a total, this EPA span that he's in since week 2. So he's week 3 to week 7 EPA. It's the best 5-game stretch of his career. Better than either of his MVP seasons. It's like unbelievable. To be honest, and you guys can clip this and Old Takes exposed it later, I'm really not worried about the Bills. The Bills are the most shoot themselves in the foot ass team I've ever seen in my life.
McDermott's brutal, man.
McDermott costs them. I mean, how much win expectancy does McDermott cost versus a league average coach? It's unreal how bad he is in big spots. He's the worst. He's like the worst win expectancy coach of a good team, I think.
Yeah, he's brutal. I still have a take from way back of just like, I don't know if we'll ever actually see a team do this, but more teams need to cut the head of the snake off and just promote the OC. I don't know if you can do that culturally within a locker room.
You can't do it with Joe Brady because Joe Brady is terrible.
No, I meant when Dable was still in the still in the building. Do that with the Saints right now. I would just terminate Dennis Allen forever, give Clint Kubiak at least the rest of the season to kind of see what's going on there. But I don't know if a team will ever do it. But there are certain situations where I think it's made sense in the past, whether, the Eagles with like Steichen or, there's a lot of those kind of like examples of just like, someone has to make a ballsy move, but I think it could pay off. Like Dable would have been nice. I think Dable would be just as scary as the Ravens right now. And I will say like Settleman, I keep seeing his tweets because he's a big Ravens fan. And I find it so funny. He's fighting wars right now. There are people in the Ravens fan base that are very firmly on fire Harbaugh right now. Like they lose a game to the Browns. It's 5-3. Dude, there are, of course, these are just like burner fan accounts with like 43 followers, but it's like Fire Harbaugh is like in his name as like his Twitter, name or whatever. So
Oh yeah.
it's crazy. Like I guess it's just like being spoiled, but I'm sitting here as a Jets fan. I'm like, come on, man. Like you've had a Super Bowl, Harbaugh. You had like 3 down years between Flacco and Lamar, and it's just been amazing since then. And what you can't beat Brady or Mahomes in the playoffs? Like, okay, man. Like it's just how it works.
I couldn't agree. I couldn't
Yeah.
agree more. But like, I'll give you one example. I mean, there are many examples of how that this coaching staff is not it. But the example in my mind that I'm like, I don't know how you come back from this is I don't remember if it was Sunday night or Monday Night Football, Bills Ravens. Bills are getting their ass kicked. They're getting some momentum. They go down and score. They get a stop. They get the ball back, and everyone's like, you can kind of feel everyone at Baltimore tighten up. The Bills are moving down the field. They get into Ravens territory. It's 1st and 10. And Joe Brady calls a trick play.
Oh, yeah.
Where Josh Allen gets the ball on a reverse. And it's like, dude, if you get the game, you don't do that right there. That is not saying it's a bad play, not saying it could never work, but you just don't do it right there. You just never, and it's very easy to say after the fact, so it doesn't work. But I'm like, no, you just let Josh Allen cook because that's what he does professionally. The dude cooks. And then, I mean, the 13-second game and all.
The DeMar Hamlin game where they bring in DeMar Hamlin on a fake punt return.
God.
They swear it's like a Disney movie with these like trick plays and feel good moments.
That was one of the worst play calls in the history of football. The DeMar Hamlin punt gunner directs. I mean, truly, yeah. So I mean, a team that is way more had the Chiefs number is the Bengals, because the Bengals are Lou Amorano just is good against Mahomes. Like the Bengals defense is terrible and they still do well against Mahomes. And I mean, Burrow is the only guy to win at Arrowhead in Brady and Burrow. That's it.
Yeah.
The only guys who have won at Arrowhead in the playoffs in the Mahomes era. Like,
and I do
Burrow
buy into the football
terrifying.
guy. I buy into like, Burrow has done it. So like he's this leader of like, there's 100% this like aura around the Chiefs of like, we're in Arrowhead right now and we're going to get our shit kicked in. And I think Burrow at least has some, he can kind of tell his guys like, I've been here before. We've done this. So I don't know. Like outside of that, like all these teams, like you said, with the 13-second thing, like, I don't know how the Bills with the current staff that like was there when they lost that game. That was actually when I won my first ever, I actually have a ring for it. I show this off every time I can, but it was like a $20 to win 1,000, whatever it was, a like long shot. This is when they used to give out the rings. I had Gabe Davis on my team. That was like the 3-touchdown Gabe Davis game. I was dead I literally just like woke up, fired like a couple of them off. I was dead the entire time watching my buddies in my basement, and every Gabe Davis touchdown, I'm seeing my score go up and up. I'm like, oh my God, guys. Like, I think I just won $1,000 on the Gabe Davis touchdown. So that game will always have a special spot in my heart.
Beautiful. All right. I think that's a good place to wrap up. Ron, tell the people about the Patreon and about your YouTube channel, all the good stuff that they can find in the good name of Ron Stewart.
Oh, 100%, man. You can just go over to Ron Stewart on YouTube. There, I do pretty much dynasty, redraft, the weekly stuff. I just dropped a waiver wire video today. It's all the good stuff, man. If you're out there playing fantasy football in these managed leagues or whatever, I got waiver wire targets, trade targets, all of that good stuff. You can find Ron Stewart on YouTube. And then if you are a sicko and you want to see what's on the Patreon, I have after we're done here, I'll be doing my rest of season rankings, and that'll be going up there as well. So I have like a waiver wire article on there, rest of season rankings, weekly rankings, all of that good stuff. Ron Stewart on YouTube, Patreon, Ron Stewart _ on Twitter as well.
There we go. All right, everyone, make sure that you check Ron out. If this is your first time watching, please subscribe to this channel. I'm trying to do a little bit of building of the second channel. If you're listening to this in the audio form, please check us out on YouTube. And of course, I will be back with another great guest next week. Adios.